Issues regarding the Müdrik. 300 Müdrik is one who follows the Imam without interruption, from the beginning to the end of the prayer, and performs all the RAK'ATs together with the Imam. 1. Who joins the Imam during the RUKU of the first RAK'AH is considered to have joined that RAK'AH and is thus called a Müdrik. The virtue of beginning prayer together with the Imam is very great. The following issues arise in this regard. 301 If a person has already begun a mandatory prayer alone, and a congregational prayer for that mandatory prayer begins at the same location, the following applies. If the person praying alone has not yet reached the prostration, they should stop their prayer and follow the Imam. In this way, they rush to earn the reward of praying in congregation. This is recommended if he has already gone into prostration once. It is assessed if the prayer he is performing is the morning or evening prayer. He still stops his prayer and follows the Imam. However, if he has already performed prostration for the second RAK'AH, he should not abandon his prayer but complete it. He cannot follow the Imam, for just as a supererogatory prayer cannot be performed after the morning prayer, a 3-RAK'AH prayer cannot be performed as a supererogatory prayer. However, for an obligatory prayer with 4 RAK'AHs, such as the noon prayer, they add one more RAK'AH to the one they have already performed, recite the tashahhud, and give the SALAM to follow the Imam. The 2 RAK'AHs he prayed earlier become a supererogatory prayer. If he is in the 3rd RAK'AH of such a prayer and has not yet reached the prostration, he immediately gives the SALAM while standing or sitting, exits the prayer, and follows the Imam. The 2 RAK'ATs he performed alone will still be considered a voluntary prayer. However, if he concludes the 3rd RAK'AT of this prayer with prostration, he completes it and has performed his obligatory prayer. Depending on whether this prayer is a noon or evening prayer, he may follow the Imam after performing his own obligatory prayer. This prayer he performs with the Imam will be considered a supererogatory prayer. However, he cannot follow the Imam for the afternoon prayer, as it is disliked to perform a supererogatory prayer after the afternoon prayer. 302. A person who has begun a voluntary prayer, when the congregation begins praying nearby, completes this voluntary prayer with 2 RAK'AHs. Then they give the SALAM and join the congregation. If they have already risen for the 3rd RAK'AH, they complete it to 4 RAK'AHs before joining the congregation. This exception does not apply to the funeral prayer. That is to say, if someone who has begun such a supererogatory prayer fears that they will miss a funeral prayer that has already begun, they should immediately stop the prayer they are performing and follow the Imam for the funeral prayer. Then they make up the voluntary prayer later, because there is nitrogen monoxide makeup for the funeral prayer. 303. If someone sees that the morning prayer has begun in congregation and believes they can catch up with the congregation, they should immediately perform the Sunnah of the morning prayer. If necessary, they may omit the SUBHANEKE, AUZU, and the additional surah, and perform only the FATHIHA surah with 1 TASBIH in RUKU and 1 in SUJUD. After that, he follows the Imam. However, if he does not believe he will be able to join the congregation, he does not begin the Sunnah and follows the Imam. He can nitrogen monoxide longer make up this Sunnah. If he has already begun the Sunnah, he completes it and does not abandon it. However, this does not apply to the noon, afternoon, and evening prayers. Anyone who sees that these prayers have already begun in congregation follows the Imam without performing their Sunnah. Then they make up the 4-RAK'AH Sunnah of the noon prayer. The Sunnah of the afternoon prayer cannot be made up due to the unfavorable time. The 4-RAK'AH Sunnah of the evening prayer is a non-mandatory Sunnah, so one may choose to make it up or NOT 304. Anyone who is absolutely certain that the time for prayer is about to expire, or that the congregation will be completely missed, should not perform the Sunnah prayers, nor should they bother to remove even a small amount of impurity from themselves. However, one who is certain that another congregation can be found will not begin prayer without removing the minor impurity. This is more meritorious. Thus, the prayer becomes valid by consensus. According to the Shafi'i school, prayer is invalidated even by a small amount of impurity. See the section on impurities.